and for spending your time with us learning about the Cradle to Career data system during your lunchtime. Can I get a thumbs up if you can see the screen? Wonderful. So welcome everybody. This Lunch and Learn is focused again on the Cradle to Career data system. I'm Meredith Curry Nunez. You can call me Mayor. My pronouns are she, her. I'm calling in from East San Jose, and I'm the Executive Director of the Northern California College Promise Coalition, also called NCCPC. What we're going to cover today, the main objectives. First, I'm going to introduce who the coalition is. Many of you here are partners. I also see our member Hayward Promise Neighborhoods on the line. And then we'll go into the Cradle to Career data system, where we'll spend most of our time and have a little bit of an opportunity to talk about what it means to engage with the system and its tools. You can go ahead and post questions into the chat at any time. But I also have an exit ticket for you all that I would like to put in the chat now. So exit ticket alert. You can scan the QR code if that's easier, or click on the link in the chat. But that's a streamlined way for me to collect any questions or feedback you have as you're hearing about the data system, so that I can lift that information up to our colleagues at C2C. First, NCCPC. We are a coalition of now 41 members spanning 12 counties, all 9 Bay Area counties, Sacramento, San Joaquin, and Tulare counties. We represent nearly 200,000 high school and college students across those 12 counties. And as you can see, our members are both locally and nationally recognized programs, college and neighborhood promise programs, advocacy organizations, charter school and K-12, and education technology nonprofits. We also have cities and mayors. So really grateful to have the cities of San Jose, Hayward, San Francisco, Rancho Cordova, and Oakland, who are also involved with our coalition. And our members are all serving students at different stages of the pipeline to equitable value. Is one way that we look at where our different partners come in to support students around their cradle to career journey. For those who follow post-secondary value commission, our members are supporting students, whether it's on access, affordability, persistence, completion, or even career launch and economic mobility. And then NCCPC's staff, like myself, and we have our Deputy Director on the line, Barbara G., as well as a program and policy coordinators, Alex and Damon. We are the backbone organization to this collective impact coalition, really bringing to bear what our members are lifting up as the needs around policy, partnerships, and practice. And you all should receive a copy of this deck. I believe I was able to give that to Claudia in time, so you will have this slide in case you'd like to reach out to any of us. And then as far as myself, I am, as Claudia noted, I came from early access outreach programs like EAOP. I was also an EAOP Bruin advisor when I went to UCLA. I come from all 3 higher ed segments. I graduated from Eastside Union High School District. I was the founding director of operations for CCGI, who manages California Colleges. I helped implement the tool DecideEd, which is a free college affordability tool developed by the nonprofit Money Think. And today I'm presenting to you again as the executive director of NCCPC, but also as a Cradle to Career advisory board member for their community engagement advisory board. And also fan club of Claudia, just want to put that shout out. Last, I am also grateful and privileged to be on the Bay Area K-16 steering committee and look forward to working with various colleagues over the next year. We had the chance to invite Ben Cheetah, Chief Deputy Cabinet Secretary for Governor Newsom, and Marianne Bates, the Executive Director of the California Cradle to Career Office, at our Mayor's Circle in November. So much of the content I'm about to share with you comes from their presentation. But I'm also going to share with you some insights that I've been keeping tabs on around the data system to support our members and better understanding how to plug in with the tools here in the Bay Area. So you'll see a blend of our different slides. First, if you have not heard of the Cradle to Career Data System before, note that it was started through the Cradle to Career Data System Act in 2019, and its intention is to actually link existing data sets to create one statewide longitudinal data system. And fun fact, I think I actually just saw from the Institute of College Access and Success a report that stated there's only about 40, a little over 40 states in the country that actually have statewide longitudinal data systems. So we here in California are just at the beginning stages of building ours out. This was over a 2-year process of bringing colleagues and professionals and stakeholders across the state from 2020 through 2021. Last year, 2022, a lot of effort was spent implementing the office and starting to design and build the tools. And as we go into 2023, we're going into year 2 of a 5-year timeline that I'm going to share with you all today. So first, high level, the Cradle to Career Data System seeks to foster evidence-based decision-making to help Californians build more equitable futures and empower individuals to reach their full potential. This is a system meant to really democratize data around Cradle to Career milestones for our students, so that each of us who support students across that journey can use that data to inform our policies and practices. And the folks that are who are heading this huge effort are part of a 3-pronged structure, which includes 1 governing board and then 2 advisory boards. The governing board includes our members, Sujin Jazz of California Competes, and 20 other leaders. It's Marianne Bates who reports to this board. They host meetings throughout the year that are public. Highly encourage you all to check them out. And this is the opportunity, and they are really creating opportunities at each step of the way to get stakeholder insight. So the 2 advisory boards are also charged with supporting that governing board and the data system with providing meaningful insights as they build the system out. The Data and Tools Advisory Board, and then the Community Engagement Advisory Board. 3 of our members, in addition to myself, are on that board. Dr. Chris Nellum of Education Trust West, Spada Viveros Walton of Public Advocates, and Jackie Navarez of Sac City Unified. All of their meetings are public, so I, again, highly encourage you all to check them out if you'd like to deepen your understanding of what's going on, but also to provide meaningful insights. And this work is needed. This work is in progress. This work has been funded with millions of dollars of investment over the last few years because of the need to link data across institutions, as many of us have probably experienced in our different pieces of work as we're supporting students and organizations in the field. There is data, they're not necessarily linked. So there's the intention here is to provide one-stop shop of data that can really track a student from point A to point B. And then for that data system and the review of that data to have an equity focus and to be student-centered, so that we can improve our understanding of where are the gaps, where are the opportunities. And as data is disaggregated based on students' multiple intersectionalities, you know, where are students being left behind, who needs the most support. As you listen to the rest of this presentation, I just wanted to call this out now, that there's a lot of ways for you to engage in case you have more questions or ideas. So whether you join a task force or come to one of these community user-centered design conversations or attend a board meeting, there's lots of ways to get involved. And as I said, if you complete our exit ticket, that's one way for me to roll up the insights from this group to share with the data system. But you can also email them directly. Please feel, they really are interested in stakeholder insights. So how will the Cradle to Career data system impact you and your work? This next piece is really, what are the tools? What are the ways that you can use them? How are they being used already? The Cradle to Career data system has 3 components. So I have heard the question before, is CCGI or California Colleges the Cradle to Career data system? And no, it is a part of the set of tools, but they're not the same thing. So the Cradle to Career data system has 3 components, including data on education and job outcomes that's coming from over a dozen partners. I'll share that list with you in a moment, but also tools to support college planning and transition. And many of you may already be familiar with one or both of these tools. CaliforniaColleges.edu, which has a student-facing interface that also advisors in schools and school districts can avail of. And then eTranscript California, managed by the California Community Colleges. But then the third part of this approach is also training and outreach. So a lot of the feedback that's coming in specifically to support with the data system is exactly how are these tools going to be fully democratized? How are they going to get to those of you who need it the most? So while I'm able to share with you where we are in the timeline, the big note is that the data and the dashboards is not yet accessible. They're working on building those tools out. However, California Colleges and eTranscript are already in use. So I'll spend a few minutes talking about those right now. And I don't see any questions in the chat, but just a reminder again, feel free to drop any questions. And I can either hold them for Q&A or I believe Claudia will lift them up to me. So the data dashboards, what's in them? There's over 200 data points, and they are continuing to explore what other data can be added to the data system. I'm going to drop into the chat 2 links. One is the high-level page that describes the data elements by provider, and you'll see that the data elements are grouped: K-12, post-secondary, workforce, student characteristics. The second is an PDF that actually presents it as a table. That might be a little bit easier, where you can see exactly what are the data elements coming from which institutions. So for those of you who love data, please check those out. The data is going to be accessible in 3 ways. One is through dashboards. And there are some of your colleagues right now being interviewed in focus group to support building out the teacher dashboard. They're going to be rolling these out in a phased approach. Second, there is a query builder. So the dashboard's already going to have some very specific like ahas to lift up. But for those of you who want to go deeper into the data, look at specific variables, relationships, you can do that through the query builder. And third, there's a research request process. So for those going through evaluations or other kind of big lifts where you need very specific data sets, there will be processes where you can request that depending on your use case. And again, the types of data that's available for you to access through these 3 mediums, I just shared those links. And the slides will be shared after this presentation. Thank you for that question. Where is the data coming from? There's already 15 data partners. Many of them are like statewide agencies. So for example, all of the 4 higher ed segments, CSAC, CDE, EDD, Department of Social Services. And it's possible that they'll continue to build out this list of sources, and that sources may even get more localized. The data advisory board is mostly in charge of thinking through specifically the data points and the data partners. Most of these data partners, I believe at this point, if not all of them, have already entered data sharing agreements, which is a huge milestone. So stay tuned for more updates on that. So we've talked about the data and we've talked about the dashboards. Now there are the tools. So CaliforniaColleges.edu. Could I just quick Zoom reactions, if folks could like use a Zoom reaction or something, if you use California Colleges, I think it would just help me to know. All right, it's looking like maybe 1/4 to 1/3 of the group. Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much. So California Colleges is in many ways a one-stop shop. It's considered a portal and not a website because it has many components to it to support students. It's a free resource, which is incredibly important to highlight. So it's open access. Any student in California can set up an account right now. You have children, you can set up an account for them right now. They can have access as early as middle school. I believe California Colleges still has restrictions due to COPPA, in that students under the age of 13 may not be able to set up an account. However, there are partner districts in the state who provide data, and that actually enhances what California Colleges can do for students, because districts are providing students course data. And that's how California Colleges can be a resource for students, not just for college and career planning. There's career assessments, students can search majors, link majors specifically to the colleges offering them. There's financial aid applications. So there's students can launch the FAFSA or California Dream Act right from California Colleges, but there's also data alignment on the A through G requirements. So for school districts, for example, that are partnered with California Colleges, that are sharing data, they get additional benefit of doing some data cleanup work on the course management portal for those who get to play with CMP, use CMP.
So Meredith, I was just
yeah.
going to say, going back to that slide, Teresa just had a comment in the chat, which is we would love to use it more, but community partners, college access programs don't have access to it the way school site staff does. And so I think we need to start working with our school districts to make sure just how we have access to their student information system, we have access to TES, we would also like work into our MOUs to have access to Cal Colleges as well. But that is something that has always been the case, that folks outside of the K-12 don't have access. What about community colleges? Do they have access to it as well to work with their students who are on it?
I do not know that answer as of yet in terms of like, do they have an actual like account that they can sign in with? I think there's potential that they may be getting data from their community college partners, especially where there are promise relationships. But that's a good question. I can take back and follow up with you on that if community colleges have access. But you're right, it's K-12 school districts that are entering into partnerships. And I understand that CCGI is working as part of their roadmap on what it could look like to have third-party access. At the very beginning, when CCGI started, they had an affiliate role, and I think they're thinking of what it could look like to do that again in the future. But you're right, that as of right now, the best bet for organizations working outside of LEAs or outside of K-12s is to support school districts in partnering and getting on the tools. And whether that's as an open access user without data sharing or with data sharing. On that note, because we're kind of talking about the difference in user types, what I'm going to do on this slide, that QR code, if you scan it, it goes to CCGI's partner list, but I'll also just drop it in the chat in case you just want to do a quick perusal of where in North, Central, or SoCal data sharing is already happening. And then also, if you're curious, what is the difference? What are the real differences if you're using it with or without data sharing for the school districts you work with? I've just included that link in the chat. And last, this is all from CCGI's website. So if anything is outdated, I apologize. I grabbed that from them. But that's their partnerships process. So if you're like, what does it mean for a district to become a partner? That PDF's included. And Claudia, apologies, I didn't send these links to you before, but I'll send them as a follow-up so you can just provide them at once with the deck.
Yeah, I'll put this all together when I share the deck.
Perfect. But what I went ahead and did with this slide is just to highlight what's happening in the state and then what's happening in this region. So Cal Colleges is being used at over 130 K-12 school districts with about 25% of the public 6th to 12th grade student population here in California. And then in terms of which school districts are already partnered with CCGI, coming from that link I shared with you, there are 7 in Alameda, 4 in San Mateo, 2 in Santa Clara, and 0 in San Francisco. So as you're thinking of like which of my school districts may or may not use this, hopefully that already answers that question. And then some of those resources I put in the chat will help you to understand what it means for a district to become a partner if they were interested. But I was also able, fortunately, last summer to get some insights. I think it's over 200 schools in the region that NCCPC serves. So the Bay Area up to Sacramento, down to San Joaquin, over 200 schools are partners. So they are leveraging the A through G tools as well. Some other things I guess I could lift up before I move on are that if you have questions specifically about California colleges, they have specific staff. And if you fill out the exit ticket and say that you have a question about Cal colleges, I will help direct you to their team. So if you have really deep questions about the tools, go ahead and ask them. But if I can't answer them, I'll direct you to CCGI. Let me just pause here and just see real quick if there are any other questions, and thanks for the ones that have come in already. Okay, so if there are further questions, we can tackle that at Q&A. Next, I'll go to eTranscript California. Reactions, who knows what eTrans is? Who has used this? It might be maybe a handful in this case. So eTranscript California has been around since 2008, and it's already helped facilitate both the request and delivery of over 3 million transcripts here in California. More than 100 institutions are registered users across all of the higher ed segments. They use a specific standard that is approved by the CSU and UC. This supports the work of specific initiatives like SB 1456 and AB 1056. It is free to every California community college. And just to help this group have a sense of where it's used here, I have this list that I pulled after looking at their list of users, which I will put in the chat in case you want to check out the full list online. So here's the list of colleges that are online. But basically campuses either accept or they send or they do both. So here in our region, it's only Chabot and Evergreen that accept and send. And Evergreen has an asterisk because they can only accept and send with other California community colleges. And then the 10 that you see on the right, Berkeley, Diablo Valley, Laney, Merritt can send only. But just to give you a sense of where this is already utilized, and if you have campus partners you're not seeing here, again, I think sometimes it can be helpful for us to bring resources or share why the need you see it as useful. But that's really all I wanted to share at this point, just noting that both California Colleges and eTranscript California both have their own roadmaps. And then the Cradle to Career Data System itself has its own roadmap. And I'll go into the timeline now. Before I do so, are there any questions about eTrans? Okay, so those are the tools, talked about the data, talked about the dashboards, how everything is working out so far. What is the plan moving forward? They have a 5-year timeline. I am going to drop the link to the 5-year timeline in the chat because it's a big document and I'm just consolidated some of the updates for this presentation. But essentially we're in the year here of year 2 where we're launching the data system. And over the next 2 to 3 years, they'll be expanding the tools so that the students and educators can access them, as well as expanding the data. Nohemi, I see your question. How can we get more colleges to use eTranscript? I'm going to put that in my list of things to follow up on. That is a great question. And I will share the insights that I find with Claudia to share with the group. Okay, so the 5-year timeline. What's going on this year? So they just completed an annual student experience audit, or they've launched it and they're in the process of evaluating the results of that. And they've also contracted with a system integrator and they happen to be local to us, Silicon Valley Consulting Group. What they're still working on with the Cradle to Career system is designing the dashboard. The first beta launch of a dashboard will be the teacher training and retention dashboard. They're also making enhancements to CMP for data quality. And then they're exploring future e-trans options. For California colleges, so many of you may already know that submission status is available for the 3 public segments. You can track FAFSA California Dream Act outcomes within 24 hours. It used to be an every 2-week upload. Now it's every day. And they're also, Cal Colleges, looking into expanding access to their planning tools and a high school e-transcript infrastructure. You'll see more details of all of the different things in the queue for Cradle to Career in years 2 through 5 in the timeline that I dropped in the chat. So that's it. I think I hope I didn't go too fast, but that is the high level, and I can go into greater detail about any of the things that I shared. But please go ahead and post any questions in the chat, which is probably easier than unmuting. While you do that, just another reminder, if you're still thinking that was a lot, you want to absorb it first and then send me your questions, please complete our exit ticket. And I will get back to you directly, as well as share any insights with Claudia. All right, let me go back to Q&A. Any questions?
I have a question. Yes. This is the second time I hear about the first piece that you talked about, the data system. And I'm wondering if there's a plan for the data system to also include student self-reported data, specifically around aspirations when it comes to their careers, interests, and industry that they're interested in. I think that 1, this information is important, but 2, it will also propel, encourage schools and districts to do that sort of work with students, to do that self-assessment, that career aspirational work that sometimes begin with inventories. So I'm wondering if there's going to be space for that sort of student self-reported data that then can also help us understand what schools or districts are or aren't doing with students around that type of thinking.
That's a really great question. I will follow up on what else besides CaliforniaColleges.edu and that data would be like career and aspirational data that students can self-report. But for those who, for those who have not looked at the My Plan for students who use California Colleges. Can you see it again? Sorry, sometimes when you stop sharing it changes. So in Students Plan, they're able to do goal setting using SMART goal prompts. And though there are reports for those who have the advisor, school, and district accounts, they can also do journaling. When they complete the different career assessments, those results are tracked. So you would have a sense of like, have they completed one? What were some of the outcomes? And then if students are completing lessons or activities where they're encouraged to favorite careers, that also ends up in reports of the careers that students are interested in. So those are a few ways that students can currently self-report aspirations through California Colleges, but there might be other things that the Cradle to Career data system is doing to really lift up that information into the dashboards, I imagine, but also into the data so that you can query it if you want to find out specifically for like the population that you're serving. Does that help answer that question? I think there's going to be several dashboards.
Oh, it was the second part. I know students can do it, and I know schools can do it with students, but I wonder, there's a power to making sure that this data is on the dashboard, so that then as a district, I could say, if I was superintendent, let's see which ones of my schools are utilizing and what's happening at this high school in terms of, you know, students thinking around career aspirations. But yeah, I see that that's sort of still in the works.
And that's a great note, and I'll lift that up too when I report back to the team. Thanks for that.
Mary, have two questions in the chat. One question is the data that was listed on the data elements table. Have all of these data elements already been integrated into Cradle to Career?
I believe that where they're at is they've entered the agreements, they've confirmed the data elements, they've contracted with the system integrator, and now the system integrator's job is to start bringing in all the data elements together. So I think we're at the beginning stages of that being integrated. But they needed that integrator firm, and that was the most recent milestone they've completed.
Great.
So in progress.
So the other question is, once this is built, will it be the primary system that CC, California Community Colleges, CSU, UC, K-12 use for data?
I don't know that I can speak for the systems. I believe that there is intention that every system plugging into the system, sharing the system, makes intentional use of it over the course of this process. But where each system is in the stages of like operationalizing that, I'm not sure. But that's a great, like, kind of big picture macro question I can lift up. Nice, keep them coming, y'all.
Dream. Kathy, go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, yeah, I had put in the chat about the UC transfer admission planner, that's an existing tool that I know we're trying to get more rising seniors who are planning to go to community college to start filling out that if they have any interest in possibly transferring to a UC after going through community college. And I'm wondering if there's a way to integrate that or to add that link as an option for students, only because, I mean, and we talked about this not too long ago. I was in a meeting. You know, I know I hate to have students fill out one more thing, but the great thing about the UC TAP planner is that it connects them directly to the campuses that they may show interest with, and then they can turn around and contact those students and then provide support to them. So I don't know if that's an option to add that link in there into the system eventually, but just wanted to put that out there.
And that sounds like it would be a really great recommendation to share with the team. Can you clarify for me, Kathy, what was the specific link you were referencing?
It's a UC transfer admission planner. I can put the link in the
That
chat.
specifically, yeah, got it. Yeah, thank you for that.
There's another question from Claudia. How is this related to the California Partnership for Achieving Student Success Plus, CalPAS data system, which we just had the opportunity to learn about yesterday, I think?
That is a really great question. I do not feel I have the information to answer. Something I'd be happy to either direct back to the C2C folks or potentially to the folks you met with yesterday at CalPAS Plus. But thank you, and I'm sorry. Thank you for that question. I'm sorry I don't have an answer for that.
We'll investigate. We'll investigate. Okay, does anyone else have any other additional questions? Well, if there are no additional questions, again, thank you for joining us at CEP's Lunch and Learn. Thank you, Meredith, so much for helping us kind of make heads or tails of this new system. It's exciting to think that these plans who've been in the queue for so long are coming to fruition. And yes, I would encourage everyone to please do the exit ticket before you leave today.
Thank you. And if I could just make one a quick note, NCCPC will be hosting 4 weeks of financial aid webinars from February 23rd to March 16th. That outreach will begin next week. They're train the trainer workshops directly for advisors and practitioners to learn more about financial aid packaging, hear more about the Financial Aid for All campaign, learn about CalKids and the Child Savings Accounts implementation, as well as hear from each of the 4 systems on how they package financial aid. and tackle scholarship and other types of financial aid displacement. So highly encourage you all to just save the date and know that that's coming soon. You'll be able to register for one of 10 plus webinars. Also, I mentioned Financial Aid for All campaign. 2 of our members are part of that, the Education Trust West and You Aspire. So we hope that you'll have the opportunity to learn more about that also as we're approaching priority deadline. But thank you so much, everybody, for this time. Thank you, Claudia, for the opportunity, and happy to answer any questions offline with anyone. Thanks again.